The old man stood in the dim glow of his garage, the early morning chill seeping through the cracked wooden door. At 68, Henry Sullivan's weathered hands traced the curves of a 1987 Honda Shadow, its black paint chipped from years of open roads and wild summers. The bike was more than steel and chrome. It was a living piece of his late wife, Clara. Her faded bandana, still tied to the handlebar, fluttered faintly, carrying the ghost of her perfume. Every scratch told a story. The scuff from a gravel road in Montana, the faint burn mark from Clara's cigarette when she'd laughed too hard at a roadside diner. Clara had been gone 4 winters, but the shadow was Henry's vow to keep her close, to feel her warmth in the roar of the engine. But on that quiet morning in the small town of Crestwood, as the first light painted the sky in hues of amber, Henry had no inkling that by dusk he'd face a choice that would tear his heart in two, between the past that anchored him and the future of the one person he loved most. "Papa, why are you out here so early?" The small voice broke the silence, and Henry turned to see 9-year-old Lily standing in the doorway, her nightgown brushing her ankles, her dark curls tangled from sleep. He forced a smile, his gray eyes softening. "Just visiting old memories, kiddo." Lily stepped closer, her bare feet careful on the cold concrete, sensing the bike's weight in her grandfather's world. "Mama says you and Nana used to ride everywhere." Henry's throat tightened as he nodded. "Every chance we got for 25 years. He lifted Lily onto the seat, her small hands gripping the handlebars where Clara's once rested. For a moment, he could almost hear Clara's voice, teasing him about taking the long way home, her arms tight around his waist. The moment shattered when Thomas, Henry's son-in-law, arrived an hour later, his face carved with worry. He sat at the kitchen table, papers strewn like fallen leaves. Hospital bills, test results, numbers that crushed the air from the room. Lily's rare blood disorder, the treatments she needed to keep her small body fighting, the costs piling higher than Thomas could climb. Henry listened, his gaze drifting to Lily outside, sketching butterflies with chalk on the cracked driveway, her movement slow but her smile bright. As Thomas's voice broke, Henry's eyes landed on the shadow through the open garage door. The decision settled in his chest like a stone. That night, Henry sat alone in the garage, Clara's old denim jacket draped over his lap, the bike's curves glinting under a bare bulb. Tucked in the saddlebag, he found a scrap of paper, Clara's slanted handwriting catching the light. "If I'm gone, Henry, don't let the past chain you. Live for family. Always. Love, C." Tears burned his eyes as he pressed the note to his heart, knowing Clara would have sold the bike in a heartbeat for Lily. But for Henry, the shadow was their sunlit rides, her laughter against his back, the freedom they'd chased together. Still, watching Lily's chalk butterflies glow under the streetlight, he made the call. "Pete's Vintage Cycles, this is Henry Sullivan," he said, voice steady despite the ache. "Got a 1987 Shadow I need to sell." He hung up, slipping Clara's note into his pocket, whispering, "Hope you're okay with this, darling." Before letting it go, Henry took the Shadow for one last ride through Crestwood's quiet streets, past the coffee shop where he and Clara shared Sunday pancakes, along the river road where she'd whoop into the wind, her hair a wild banner. The engine's hum was a hymn of love and loss, the breeze carrying his silent tears. Back home, he polished the chrome until it shone like a mirror, murmuring to Clara as if she lingered in the shadows. At Pete's, Henry handed over the keys to a gruff shop owner named Sam, whose calloused hands offered $14,500. Enough for Lily's next round of treatments. Henry signed the title, his fingers trembling, and watched the bike roll away on a trailer, its rumble fading into the dusk. That evening, the garage felt hollow, the empty space where the shadow stood for decades now a silent wound. Clara's helmet hung alone, the air thick with absence. When Thomas and Lily arrived for dinner, Lily's eyes caught the void instantly. "Papa, where's your bike?" she asked, voice small. Henry knelt, taking her hands. "Sold it, sweetheart, to keep you strong." Her eyes welled up. "Are you sad because of me?" Henry hugged her tight, voice cracking. "Never, kiddo. You're my whole world. Nana would have wanted this." Lily's arms clung to him, and for a moment the garage didn't feel so empty. Unbeknownst to Henry, his quiet sacrifice was about to ripple beyond Crestwood, stirring a community of strangers who'd soon fill his street with the sound of engines and the weight of gratitude. At Pete's Vintage Cycles, a young mechanic named Ethan Carter couldn't shake the image of Henry Sullivan signing over his Honda Shadow, his weathered hands steady, but his gray eyes heavy with unspoken grief. Ethan had seen countless bikes change hands, but the quiet resolve in Henry's face, sacrificing a piece of his soul for his granddaughter, stuck with him. That night, in his cluttered apartment, the glow of his laptop casting shadows across empty coffee cups, Ethan logged into Iron Road Brotherhood, a sprawling online forum for bikers across the heartland. His post was raw, unpolished. "Met an old rider today, Vietnam vet. Gave up his '87 Shadow to pay for his granddaughter's medical bills. That bike was his life, his wife's memory. Sold it to keep her alive. That's what riding's about." He hit send, not expecting much, but within minutes the thread lit up. "What's his story? How can we help?" "Drop his info, man." Ethan typed out the details: Lily's illness, Henry's sacrifice, the empty garage left behind. As he shut his laptop, he didn't know his words were sparking a fire that would spread across the country, uniting riders in a way he couldn't have dreamed. By morning, Ethan's post had exploded across biker forums, shared from Kansas to the Carolinas. Veteran clubs, lone riders, and charity groups passed it along, each seeing their own losses and loves in Henry's choice. "That's a true rider," one comment read. "Family over everything." A widow in Missouri, who'd lost her husband to cancer, wrote, "This hits home. We ride for him." A shop owner in Oklahoma offered parts. A painter in Georgia volunteered custom work. The story touched a nerve. Riders who'd faced illness, loss, or sacrifice rallied around Henry's quiet heroism. A club leader in Nebraska posted, "Let's get him a bike back. Something worthy." Over the next 10 days, the movement grew. Local chapters held rides, collecting donations in dusty bar parking lots. A mechanic in Cleveland sourced an engine. A leather worker in Tennessee stitched custom saddlebags. Riders crisscrossed highways, delivering parts like pilgrims carrying offerings. Each bolt, each panel, was touched by hands that understood what it meant to lose something precious and keep going. By the 12th day, a 1987 Honda Shadow, rebuilt from the ground up, stood ready, its chrome gleaming, its tank painted with a soaring eagle in honor of Clara's free spirit. But the riders had more planned, something to show Henry that his sacrifice hadn't gone unnoticed. On a crisp Saturday morning, Henry knelt in his front yard, tightening a wobbly wheel on Lily's tricycle, the air sharp with the scent of dew-soaked grass. Lily, her cheeks rosy, scribbled chalk stars across the driveway, humming softly. Then a low rumble broke the quiet, distant but growing, like thunder rolling in from the plains. "Papa, what's that?" Lily asked, her eyes wide. Henry stood, wiping grease from his hands, his heart quickening as the sound swelled. Dozens of engines, deep and steady, shaking the ground. He stepped to the curb, Lily clutching his hand as the first motorcycle rounded the corner of their quiet Crestwood street. One bike became 10, then 20, then a river of chrome and leather filling the road. Men and women, young and old, their jackets patched with club insignias, their helmets catching the morning light. Neighbors spilled onto lawns, phones raised, whispering as the roar of engines drowned out the birds. Henry's breath caught as the lead rider pulled into his driveway and cut the engine. the sudden silence ringing in his ears. The rider removed his helmet. Ethan, the mechanic from Pete's, his face lit with purpose. "Mr. Sullivan," Ethan said, stepping forward. "I'm Ethan. We met when you sold your shadow." Henry nodded, confused, Lily peeking from behind his leg. Ethan gestured to the street, now lined with over 150 bikes, riders watching in respectful silence. "Your story spread, sir. What you did for Lily. It reminded us what family means." He pointed to a flatbed trailer easing up behind the bikes, a tarp covering a familiar shape. "We thought it was time something came back to you." 4 riders stepped forward, pulling the tarp away to reveal a gleaming 1987 Honda Shadow, its frame rebuilt, its paint a deep midnight blue with an eagle soaring across the tank. The saddlebags were embossed with "Family Always," and a small purple helmet, just Lily's size, hung from the handlebar. Henry's knees buckled, his hand reaching for the bike, fingers grazing the warm chrome. Tears blurred his vision as he turned to Ethan. "I don't understand," he whispered. Ethan's voice was soft but firm. "This bike came together from riders across the country. Paint from Alabama, parts from Ohio, leather from Tennessee. Every piece carries someone's story, someone who knows what you gave up." He handed Henry an envelope, adding, "And this, the community raised enough to cover Lily's treatments for 2 years." Henry shook his head, overwhelmed. "I can't take this." Ethan smiled. "It's not about taking, sir. It's about family." Lily tugged Henry's sleeve, her voice bright. "Papa, can we ride it?" Henry looked at her, then at the sea of riders, their faces warm with respect. He nodded, lifting Lily onto the seat, fastening her tiny helmet. Her giggle broke the quiet as he settled behind her, hands finding the grips like they'd never left. For a moment, he closed his eyes, feeling Clara in the breeze, her laughter echoing in the engine's hum. He turned the key, and the shadow roared to life, its pulse steady and strong. Ethan raised a hand, and engines sparked to life down the street, a chorus of power and unity. "Ready, kiddo?" Henry asked. Lily squealed, "Ready!" With a gentle twist of the throttle, Henry eased out of the driveway, Lily waving wildly as 150 riders fell in behind, their bikes a rolling tide of honor and love through the streets of Crestwood. The procession of motorcycles wound through Crestwood like a living river, the deep growl of engines reverberating off clapboard houses and storefronts. Henry Sullivan led the way, his hands steady on the grips of the reborn 1987 Honda Shadow. Lily perched in front of him, her purple helmet glinting under the morning sun. Her laughter soared above the rumble, a bright thread weaving through the thunder. Neighbors lined the sidewalks, some waving, others wiping tears, their phones capturing the sight of over 150 riders trailing Henry. Veterans with gray beards, young women with braided hair, men with faded tattoos, all bound by a shared reverence for his sacrifice. They rolled past the Rusty Spoon Cafe, where Henry and Clara had lingered over coffee and blueberry muffins every Sunday, the waitresses now standing outside, aprons fluttering, hands pressed to their hearts. Down River Road, where Clara once threw her head back, shouting into the wind, Henry felt her presence in every curve, her spirit riding alongside them in the dappled sunlight filtering through ancient oaks. Lily raised her small arms, mimicking the stories she'd heard of her grandmother, and Henry's chest ached with a mix of sorrow and joy. The riders behind kept formation, their engines a steady hymn of respect, some nodding to Henry as they passed cars pulled over, drivers standing in awe. At a quiet bend, Henry slowed, glancing at Lily's beaming face in the side mirror. "Having fun, kiddo?" he called over the engine. "It's the best, Papa," she shouted, her voice cutting through the roar. He smiled, tears catching in the creases of his weathered face, feeling Clara's warmth in the breeze, as if she were whispering, "Keep going, love." The ride wasn't just for Lily. It was a bridge between the past and the future, a reminder that love doesn't fade but shifts, carried forward in every mile. As they looped back toward home, Crestwood seemed transformed, its familiar streets now sacred ground. The sheriff tipped his hat from his cruiser, a rare smile softening his stern face. Kids on bikes pedaled to keep up, cheering as Lily waved like a parade queen. Henry's heart swelled, the weight of loss, of Clara, of the bike he'd sold, easing under the warmth of this unexpected family. At a stoplight, a woman in a pickup leaned out, her voice cracking. "You're a good man, Henry Sullivan." He nodded, unable to speak, his throat tight. Lily squeezed his arm, whispering, "They love you, Papa." The light turned green, and they moved on, the shadows rumble carrying them into a future brighter than Henry had dared hope. Back on their street, Henry eased the bike into the driveway, the riders parking along the curbs, engines falling silent one by one until the air held a reverent hush. Lily slid off, her cheeks flushed, tugging off her helmet to reveal a wild tangle of curls. "That was so cool!" she squealed, throwing her arms around Henry's waist. He hugged her back, his eyes lifting to see neighbors gathered, some clapping, others dabbing their eyes. The riders dismounted, helmets tucked under arms, and began approaching, each offering a handshake, a quiet word, a pat on the shoulder. A grizzled man with a veteran's patch said, "You showed us what matters, Henry." A young woman, her jacket embroidered with a rose, whispered, "This is for my dad, who loved the road." Each touch, each word carried stories of loss and resilience, binding them to Henry in ways words couldn't capture. Lily stood close, her hand in his, listening as riders shared fragments of their lives, children they'd fought for, partners they'd lost, roads that had healed them. Henry felt the moment stretch beyond himself, becoming a tapestry of human connection, woven from sacrifice and care. As the sun climbed higher, Ethan, the young mechanic, stepped forward, holding a small photograph. It showed the shadow during its rebuild, surrounded by a dozen riders and mechanics, their faces proud, their hands stained with grease and paint. "We wanted you to have this," Ethan said, his voice warm. "These are the folks who brought her back, strangers who became family because of you." Henry took the photo, his fingers trembling, tears welling as he studied the faces, each one a piece of this miracle. Lily peeked at it, whispering, "They made it for us, Papa." He nodded, voice thick. "They sure did, kiddo." The riders began to disperse, engines rumbling softly as they waved farewell, their bikes gleaming in the noon light. Henry and Lily stood in the driveway, watching the last one vanish around the corner, the sound fading into a gentle hum. The garage, once a hollow shell, now felt alive. The shadow's chrome catching the light, its tank's eagles seeming to soar. Henry lifted Lily onto the seat again, her giggles filling the air as she pretended to rev the engine. Beside Clara's helmet, Lily's purple one hung, swaying faintly, two guardians side by side. On the workbench, Henry set the photo next to Clara's note, their edges touching, a promise kept, a new chapter begun. That evening, Lily taped a new drawing to the fridge, a motorcycle with 3 figures, Henry, Lily, and a woman with flowing hair, wings sketched faintly behind her, all smiling under a bright sun. Henry's heart caught at the sight, his whisper barely audible. "We'll ride again tomorrow, Clara." The garage, the bike, his heart, they were full once more, not with loss, but with love that endured, carried on the wind of every road ahead. The next morning, sunlight spilled across Crestwood's quiet streets, glinting off the dew that clung to the grass in Henry Sullivan's yard. He wheeled the Honda Shadow to the driveway, its midnight blue paint catching the light like a promise. Lily bounced beside him, her purple helmet snug under her chin, her laughter bright as the chime of a bell. "Papa, can we go to the cafe today?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with the memory of Henry's stories about Sunday mornings with Clara at the Rusty Spoon. Henry adjusted her chin strap, his smile warm. "You got it, kiddo." As he swung his leg over the bike, neighbors peeked through curtains, their faces softening at the sight of Henry and Lily, the shadow's chrome gleaming under the dawn. He paused, glancing at the sky, a soft whisper escaping his lips. "Ready, Clara." The breeze stirred, warm and gentle, as if carrying her answer. "Always." The engine roared to life, its deep pulse filling the morning, and Lily waved to a neighbor sweeping her porch, who waved back with a grin. They rolled down the street, the hum of the shadow blending with Lily's giggles, a melody of hope and memory. At the Rusty Spoon Cafe, waitresses leaned out the door, recognizing Henry's silhouette as he parked. "Good to see you back, Henry," one called, her apron dusted with flour. Lily hopped off, her curls bouncing, shouting, "Papa says Nana loved the pancakes here." Henry chuckled, guiding her inside, where the smell of coffee and syrup wrapped around them like a warm blanket. Over plates of pancakes, Lily chattered about school, her drawings, and how she'd tell her friends about the big ride. Henry listened, his heart full, feeling Clara in the clink of forks, the murmur of the diner, the life pulsing around them. They took the long way home, turning onto a winding country road where sunlight dappled through towering pines. Henry slowed, letting Lily raise her arms like Clara used to, her small hands catching the breeze. "It's like flying, Papa," she squealed. He smiled, his eyes misting, imagining Clara beside them, her hair streaming like a comet's tail, her laughter woven into the rustle of leaves. "She's with us, kiddo," he said softly. Lily twisted to look at him, her face bright. "I know, Papa." In that moment, Henry felt it. Love wasn't trapped in the past. It rode with them, steady and alive, in every mile they shared. Back in Crestwood, the town seemed to hum with the echo of the rider's visit. Shopkeepers nodded as Henry and Lily passed, the sheriff raised a hand from his patrol car, and a group of kids on the corner cheered. "Cool bike!" Lily waved back, her grin wide enough to light the street. At a crosswalk, an old man in a faded cap leaned out of his truck. "You did good, Sullivan," he said, his voice rough with respect. Henry nodded, throat tight, unable to find words. Lily squeezed his hand, whispering,